It's in the video window, so you're ready when we start. There's your clicker. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I know how it is, it's like. And how old was it? He lived a good life. Did he get to enjoy it? Does this?
The encouragement to you is finding sacrifice what you're asking for. So you're welcome
My phone is not, I can't get it. Oh, boy. Yeah.
Good morning. Kelvin.
I'm happy.
Kathy, that's my wife.
I was like, wait, but no.
And you are here, Mary Ann. And sister. Cool. You go.
I go to National College.
You're in college. What year are you?
I was just, but his text wasn't here, I was like, no, I've been friends. Oh, family.
But if I could play down just to get figured out.
Oh, sweet.
Hi, good morning. It is Katie.
Oh. Well, I didn't do, I didn't, I just watched it. I was just like, I just have to go through the Texas.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't see you. And I was
Next week.
oh, okay, gotcha, I understand.
No, it doesn't show the video. Like, if you were to sit here. We don't wear ties anymore.
You're not teaching today.
No.
I even studied for it, too. I was like, oh, I know. I'll have to read it all over again, though.
Yes, actually, we just arrived.
I just wasn't sure.
We had a big one thing that
Yeah, I do, I know that. Yeah, I know.
I saw it.
There's been a couple of them that's passed through.
I know, I'm going to Denmark this morning. Way out. I took on this. citizenship. Yeah, no, it's fine, it's fine. It's my wife. I met my wife in the Adventures and Missions program at Sunset. Sunset School of Preaching in Lubbock. They do that program. It's for college kids and do 6 months training and and so we did that back in 1980. She was from Montana, so we ended up catching her. Yeah, so I married into Montana. I'm blessed. Okay, then, I'm ready. All right. Yeah, so whatever you need to do.
I'll take a long introduction.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, good morning. It's about time to get started, a little bit after time as is usual for us, I think. But we're excited today. I'm not doing the Bible class today. We've got Kelvin Hoover here from Orphan's Lifeline International, and he has been visiting several churches, I think in the Michigan area, and we're excited to have him with us to learn more about this great ministry, and I hope that you'll give him your full attention, and I'm sure we're going to have a great class. So, Kelvin, I'll turn things over to you.
Great to be here. I really appreciate the leaders allowing me to come and share this ministry. And I had a great drive this morning from Marion. I stayed over there. It was a beautiful, beautiful drive. I grew up really in Ontario, so north, the other side of the lake, you know, that Ontario. And really similar countryside. I live in Montana. I say I married into Montana. You know, some people marry into the United States, which I did, but because I'm Canadian. But you know, if you're from outside of Montana, they really don't appreciate you. But if you're married to a Montanan, it's okay. But great to be here, and let's start with a word of prayer. Our great God, we praise your holy name. We give you thanks for this wonderful day, for the beauty around us, and for your awesome creation that reminds us of your glory and power. Thank you for the time we can gather this morning to be reminded of you, to worship you, and to encourage one another as we walk in the kingdom, your kingdom. Help us to be a blessing and to those around us, and to honor you in the things we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. So I appreciate the opportunity. Orphan's Lifeline is a ministry that started in Montana, of all places. It's a big state, but you know, only 1 million people in Montana. But some of the Christians up at Kalispell Church of Christ up by Glacier National Park had gone with their preacher to Siberia, actually, far eastern Russia. Back in the mid to late 90s, their preacher had been doing some mission work there. And when these families went, these couples, and they visited orphan homes there, the conditions were really, really deplorable. And so they initially adopted some children. They helped some people adopt some children. And they wanted to do more than that. And so around 2000, they got this 501c3, Orphan's Lifeline, off the ground. And I was preaching at that time in Livingston, Montana. I would go over the pass to Bozeman, a bigger town that had a Christian bookstore, family Christian bookstore. And every time I checked out, they'd have World Vision children plastered there. Would you sponsor one of our World Vision children? And I said no, and walked out feeling guilty about it, because I'm like, oh, you know, we see all these pictures of children that are starving, literally, and but I wasn't sure I wanted to give World Vision my money. And so when Orphan's Lifeline came along, I was quite excited to participate. And our church started helping, and you know, they went around Montana, and it's just continued to spread. I've spoken at over 130 churches this past 8 years, trying to get more people aware of this ministry. That when I started 8 years ago, I was impressed that they had broken $1 million a year coming in. They were at 1.3 million. And this last year, we hit 2.3 million. And so some people might think that sounds like a lot of money, but you know, when you're thinking about the amount of orphan children in the world, it's a minuscule amount of money. And I know that our brotherhood can produce 10 or 15 million if I let enough people know. And it's not so we have more money, because it just all goes to these orphan homes, and we'll care for more orphans. So I look forward to continuing to see us do more. Yeah, it's on. So when they traveled to Russia in the late 90s, and it would be about right, around 2000, this baby would have been born. His name now is Zach Jones, but they visited an orphan home and they were holding babies. They said, well, what's with him over there? They said, leave him alone, he's gonna die. And they were like, what? And he said, we have no medicine. And so the orphan homes in Siberia were, and I'm sure still are, they out of the big cities, because Vernon and Khabarovsk are where we have Christians. They're bigger cities, and they go out and help these rural orphan homes. But they would get funding from central office some months and some months not. They really struggled for financing, and so they had staffing shortages, severe, and financial resources shortages, severe shortages. They went to town, bought the medicine for this little baby, and I met him a couple of years ago. They got him adopted, and he was adopted by a family in Washington that was from Oklahoma. He grew up outside Oklahoma City, and he's graduated from Oklahoma Christian now as an engineer. And so pretty awesome. But the pictures that we see from Russia and around the world as they continue to grow, you know, a lot of the work was Russia, but now most of our work is India, Africa, Haiti. But this picture here is girls that were picked up in Haiti. Baton has a home there. Baton was an evangelist in Haiti, and him and his wife decided that they needed to do something for all the orphans that they had around there. And I'll show you a picture of the girl in the middle. Well, I'll show you a picture of all of them in a little bit, but my wife and I have been sponsoring the girl in the middle. She's like 13 now, but that's when he picked them up off the streets in Haiti. And so when I started this ministry, you know, as ministers, we get to know people all over the place, whether from school or some mission work. And I had done AIM, I was sharing with some of the men, Adventures in Missions out of Sunset School of Preaching. And I was in Australia for 1.5 years. And one of the girls on our team came back and married a guy that went through Sunset, and they were in Haiti for doing mission work. When I started with Orphan's Lifeline, and you know, I kind of on Facebook probably, I'm with Orphan's Lifeline now, and Sarah, this lady, he messaged me, hey, and I knew she was a missionary in Haiti. Hey, do you have any homes in Haiti? I was like, well, yeah, you know, giving money to something is one thing. Representing that something is another thing altogether. It's like, I love God. I'm an evangelist. I want to do good. I want everything I do, I want it to be honorable and upright. And you expect that things are, but you know, when you are now representing it, you're so Sarah said, do you have any homes? I was like, yes, we do. We have 2 in Haiti. And then she messages me back, well, who are they? Who runs those homes? And I was a little nervous to say Tabitha and Baton are the 2 homes, thinking, I hope she likes these people, you know, I hope she knows them. And she messaged me back and said, those are 2 of my best friends in Haiti. You know, and so I was thrilled to get that kind of report from somebody that's on the ground. And so that was really a blessing for me to reinforce in me that, hey, they've done their due diligence, everything is good and honorable. And so what has happened over the last 23 years now, so recognize that they really started in Siberia, where these Vernon and abut are two big cities out there, probably a million. But these Christians there go out and help the rural orphanages that don't have much funding. They will buy school equipment, sports equipment. They help them with farming. They'll buy things like that to help them with that, and all kinds of. They don't give them any money, and so those are, Russian-owned homes. They're Russian orphan homes. But that's where this ministry started. It was like, can you help us help orphans? Because that's what they saw. Well, subsequently, over the years, they kept getting requests, and God has kept blessing them with resources. And so we have what you see here, 800 orphans in care, 200 orphans and children. And so we started that about 3 years ago into a widows type ministry out of some of our care homes. And so it's really spread. You can see I have the red dots there signifying how many homes we have in each area. India, 6 homes. Kenya, we had 3, but we added Harrison 3 years ago, who started a ministry to care for widows and their children. And so now we fund that program for him. And I'll talk about Harrison in a little bit. So 21 homes in 8 countries. Russia would be 9, but we're there, but it's, I call it, it's more of a subsidy. So we don't have control over those homes. We share resources, but we fund and manage the 21 homes that we have. And so there's a lot of orphans in the world because there's a shortage of food. There's a war, which is happening in Ukraine, the Middle East, and we're making orphans, sadly. And this little boy saw his parents killed and they cut his leg off. Now that sounds bizarre, but in Liberia, Sierra Leone, I was talking to one of my missionary friends that goes to Africa, and he's the reason that we have the home in Liberia now. And when we were talking about, he wanted us to help this home, and we were visiting, and I said, well, we were just talking. He said, something about, I don't know what came up, but he said, long sleeve, short sleeve. I was like, well, I've got those. What are you talking about? He said, you need to watch Blood Diamonds. And I said, I heard of that movie. I didn't want to watch it. And it was a blockbuster, 15 years ago. And it was about the Civil War in Sierra Leone and Liberia. And they literally came into villages with the kids with their machine guns. They trained the kids to be killers. And kind of like Cambodia, same thing. What was the guy's name that did Cambodia? Hot or something? What was his name? Yeah, thank you. And so they trained the kids to be killers, but they came in, the kids they took, the boys, the young boys, the women and girls, they just they left them in the movie. They sure wouldn't leave them today. But the young men they took to work for them in their mines and stuff. The old men, they found a big block in the village, and they said, do you want a long sleeve or short sleeve? And they literally chopped them off at the wrist or elbow. True story. And so it sounds unbelievable, but that's what goes on in an evil world. And so even to children. And so shortage of food and diseases that we have mostly eradicated in our lands, meat markets that aren't all that sanitary, outhouses, and I know some of you have used an outhouse. I grew up in civilization in Ontario. We're really civilized, But my grandma, when I was a little boy, I remember going using an outhouse at my grandma's, out on the old family farm. And so, and I'm not very old, I'm only 40, so you can imagine. And so it's just not very sanitary for elementary kids to be out there. And so those conditions we don't allow at our homes. We have to raise that level. Now, why are there orphans? I wouldn't have imagined that there could be a drug and alcohol problem in a third world country. My daughter and her husband went and taught on the Kuskokwim River in Alaska. A couple-hour flight out of Anchorage. Only way you can get there is in a plane, or you use a boat in the summer and get up the river. But it's native villages. They were the teachers in the village. No drugs and alcohol are allowed in the village. Guess what problem they have? Drugs and alcohol problem, of course. These are people that cannot feed their children, but they get drugs and alcohol. And so it's pretty sad when you realize that, drugs and alcohol are everywhere. And so some of these children may have parents that literally cannot take care of them. And so that's a real problem in third world countries. And so you can see it in these children's eyes, the lack of hope. These are children that are coming, the pictures were taken because they're coming into one of our homes. And you can see the fear in their eyes because they don't know what they're going to get, what to expect. And cockroach bite on the face, literal true story. That baby was in Russia. And it doesn't have to be this way, the fear. We can hear. This is the picture I like, before and after. The fear in the eyes of what is this all about, and the joy a few years later that you see on the faces of these children. And so that's what we're trying to create. This is Widnadine, 2012 and 21. And that's the girl that my wife and I sponsor. And she was baptized last year. She's about 13. She was 13. She's probably 14. But she was baptized there in Haiti, which when we started this, when I started working for them, and we thought, well, we should sponsor a child, and I didn't feel any need to see Widnadine. How somebody, I really hope I see Widnadine someday. But after 16 pictures of her, I'd kind of like to see her now. Kind of like to meet her. But, and so, we're just trying to help bring awareness and that we become more compassionate and have a desire to care. And so these are the three key elements for Orphan's Lifeline. Get the children off the street, taken care of in a safe place. Get them a private education, and that costs money. And show them God's love. Teach them about Jesus so they can be Christians just like you and I. So that's our goal. And so to feed them in their native way. No Americans at our homes at all. No Americans there. There's been visits from Americans, but no Americans are there working at these facilities. It's all native Christians. And according to my friends Sarah and David Deerham that worked in Haiti, they said that's the right thing to do because the home that they were associated with in Haiti had a lot of Americans there. The children want to be like Americans, and they're constantly calling Americans that they met for money. And so they become dependent on Americans. And so we want these children to grow up in their environment and be a blessing to their culture and help their people. And so there they are, sitting on the ground just like every other child in their country. Food and water, medical care that can be provided, dental care, eye care, whatever is in the area that they can get to, we will provide that for them. And medicine in medicine cabinets is a great blessing. And so private education, all of our children are in private education. If you go to public school in a third world country, you will not be able to go to college unless, I've had someone say, if you're in one of the big cities, you might be in a public school that would give you the ability to get to a college. But generally speaking, they're not going to be able to get any higher education. And most of them won't finish even lower elementary schools. And so all of our kids are in private education so that they can make a difference in their world. They'll be the educated people in their world. These kids that were going to die or set aside are now the kids that can be a blessing in their culture. And so to see them all in school and classes at Safe Home in Liberia, there's a school building there on the property. And so they've been able to hire some of their graduates as teachers. I've talked to our missionary that goes over there. They have one of their students that grew up there is their a bookkeeper at the school now. And so some of them come back. They're so thankful for what that facility that did for them that they want to do. That's what they want to do. And I've seen a number of these kids in their writing, their handwritten notes. You know, when I grow up, I want to be able to help children because somebody's helping them, and so they have a desire to help. And so here, as I said, India, I just tried to throw some different pictures on that show the kids in school. And, you know, their desks are a little less than what our students would have, but they are receiving a good education. And life skills, right here, they're learning, let's see, there we go. You can see them doing something. They are making sandals, making their own sandals. So I was thinking maybe our students here could learn to make their own shoes, you know? And so a lot of gardening, a lot of farming. Most of these homes have some kind of agricultural component to try to help them be more self-sufficient and help the students learn skills like that that would be useful to them. Safe Home in Liberia does a lot of agriculture. Ron Hopberg, the pale guy up there, left middle, is my friend that goes over there. And they had a year-round spring on that property. So he said, let's dig rice paddies. And they grew rice for the kids. And they later on, a few years later, he said, you know, we could dig these deeper and raise fish and we'd have protein for the kids. And so the thing that children don't get in third world countries, and maybe, of course, most people, is protein on a daily basis. And so I've learned that we need protein for our brain. I thought it was just for our muscles, you know, but we need it up here. And so the students get better grades when they have protein every day. They can learn. So, you know, you think about that here in America where kids aren't getting protein, they really can't learn very well if they're not being fed well. And so these are a couple of kids that grew up at Safe Home. Elijah is in electrical engineering now, and this next one, Augustus, is studying agriculture. And so from that home, now John Travis that started this home was in the refugee camps in Ghana when Ron Hopberg, my World Bible School friend, met him. And he's an educated Liberian. He has a college degree, but he was in a refugee camp in Ghana because of the Civil War. And he said, when I get back to Liberia, I want to have an orphan home for all these kids. And he has over 50 children that he's caring for, and we're providing the funding for them. This was an impressive story here about one of the homes in India. You can see he was there since '05. And I put it up there just because it was in a newsletter recently. He's going on into his master's program, but he grew up at that home in India. And it was saying, you know, we need this much money to provide for his next year. And so I have a note there that they had on the posting that Orphan's Lifeline sent the money for that. And lead them to the saving grace of Jesus. To see the kids studying their Bibles and learning about God and Jesus Christ is the number one thing. And so when I started with Orphan's Lifeline, I've been preaching for 30 years. And I started with them, and I'm like, I want to know how much these kids are learning about the Bible. And they said, oh, you know, they're studying the Bible a lot. I said, okay, that's great. How much is a lot? And they finally, for my benefit, emailed the managers and came up with a 2 to 3 hour average day of time that they are, in Bible class, in a devotional, because it's kind of like, I've said before, it's kind of like being a Christian Bible camp in the summer. You get up in the morning, you have a devotional, and then you go to school, and one of your classes is Bible, or a Christian school here in America. Those kids that are in a Christian school here in America are getting a whole lot more Bible than our kids that are in public school. And so same thing with our homes that we fund and manage. So it's a great blessing. I'm excited to know that. The kids in Russia, those are kids in Russia getting Bibles that Eugene Bekoff is signing. And so they all get Bibles, but that's all that we can do for those kids in Russia. I know that from things I've read, there's Christian people that help at those homes, for sure, but we can't give any of their Russian homes, so we can't do a lot from a Christian perspective. But the kids that we fund and manage, if we sponsor those children, like my wife and I sponsor a child, well, we get to put a little note and they get a Bible from us. That's one of the things that they have. So what do these kids own? They don't own much. They own the clothes they're wearing, and they get a Bible that they literally own. Their Bible with some American's name in it. And this is the Shelton Church of Christ out in Washington State that sponsored these two kids. And I saw those pictures. So this is the home in Liberia. Some of the kids being baptized around the world. And this is Fatan in Haiti baptizing some kids, and some kids in Liberia being baptized. So that's a joy to see. And these kids are giving thanks for American Christians who are giving them the ability to survive and learn about God. And so I like pictures. I throw pictures like this in because if you go on our Facebook page, you'll see a new picture every day about something. So Orphan's Lifeline on Facebook. And so sometimes I'll just grab a posting that they've put on. But I have two granddaughters, and I would be thrilled for my granddaughters to be in those clothes. And that means a lot to me that our children overseas they're in clothes I'd be proud for my kids to be wearing. And so I'm thrilled to see that. We're building a new school at Safe Home. John Travis, a number of those kids go to college or university programs, because not everybody will. And so he wanted a home that he could do tech skills in to help students that would graduate and be able to be learning different tech programs that they would be able to utilize. And this was recently, they had one of these, some information about these teachers doing some computer program, some computer work, learning something on the computers at Safe Home. I thought, well, I don't know. I'm like, did they just get computers? I would have had to ask, but I don't need to ask ever. I don't need to know everything. But I thought that is cool that they're teaching them to utilize the computers and things, and they bought the uniforms. So they're at Safe Home. They're outside. They're by a small town, and so they actually educate some of the kids in that town at the school there because they have the capacity to do it. But they had a note that these students couldn't afford the uniforms. So, in most of the world, children wear uniforms to school. And so they're in Liberia, they got to have a uniform. And so they bought the uniforms for these kids to go, which was kind. Peter's Memorial is in India. And I put this slide in. It was a recent slide I had it because she's mentioning Brother Doss. He's one of the guys that checks over the homes in India for us, that he'd been there. And then she puts there, Churches of Christ and Budapest greet you. I thought that's pretty cool. It's just like Romans 16:16 reminded me of. So I thought that's a great slide. And it's a girls' home. And so these are some of the pictures from that girls' home that are awesome to see the kids. And this one, this lady, young lady with a new baby, her mom was the cook at that home while she was growing up. And if you had time to read the whole thing, she ended up being a lawyer, and she just had this baby. And her husband's a lawyer in India. And so it's awesome to see that these are Christian people now in those kinds of roles in these foreign countries, because we're funding that happening from here in America. And this is Hope Family Home in Haiti, and Widnadine, the one with the afro, third, fourth from the right. I looked at that picture when I saw it. I thought, where's Widnadine? I've never seen her with an afro. I thought, where's my girl? Well, I couldn't find her, and I thought, okay, face, just look at the face. So there she is, and so I wanted to see my girl. And Baton and his wife are on our left, your left there. And so they needed, I guess they had a little earthquake or big earthquake, and their gate got broken. And in Haiti, I think you want to have a gate. And so we sent the money to repair their gate. And that's Widnadine, front right. See, she looks a lot different with her hair like that and an afro. So when I saw that picture, I thought, where'd my girl go? And Baton sent this picture and requested somebody drop that little baby off. And it's like he wrote to the office and said, can I add a child? Because we fund them per child is how they get funded. And so it's like, somebody dropped this baby off. Can I keep the baby? Will you fund me to care for this baby? So it's pretty amazing that happens. That's a home that we built in India for this school. They lost their property. They were renting it. They were having trouble finding someone that would rent them another property because they were a Christian orphans home, children's home. And so a brother donated some land, and literally the church in Sioux Falls, South Dakota pretty much funded this building, which was really cool. And these are the kids that are there. They have 50, 60 kids at the home there. In India, I have learned that a lot of these kids, and this is a girl that graduated there, these are some girls, they posted this picture with nothing, no words. And I said, it just said, it was in a newsletter, and it said, these girls came back to visit their director from where they grew up and were taught. And I called them, I said, hey, I need to know what those girls are doing. Because to me, that's the success of this ministry, is seeing these children develop into healthy individuals. And so that you can see there, college, married, college, nurse, mother. And so one of the things that we're doing in any kind of good orphan care is breaking the cycle. And so if we don't help these children, if they grow up, they are going to create orphans. Literally, true story. It's hard to believe, but my daughter in Seattle, Washington has had 3 boys. 2 years ago, she got a baby 6 days old from a mother who, it was her 5th child from 5 men. Okay? She's a meth addict. And last fall, that lady called my daughter. She didn't tell us until much later. She said that she called her and said, I'm going to have another baby and I want you to have my baby. She fought to keep the 5th one. She's lost all those. She doesn't have any of those children. But this time she called and said, I want you to have my baby. And so my daughter is about to pick up she's going to have her, now she'll have 3 boys and 2 girls, but she'll have a second one. So right here in America, 6 babies from 6 men. It's bizarre, breaking that cycle is what we're doing for people because they don't understand God and the holy life that we can live and the joy that we can have in Christ. And so part of it is just breaking that cycle. And so we're thankful to be able to do that. These are some of the kids, girls that have grown up at some of the homes, and the careers that they have now. And Acts of Charity is the widow's home that we started. Do I have till 10:15?
Yeah, around there.
Yeah. And so we start. Harrison was trained at Bear Valley online from Kenya. He was an evangelist outside Nairobi, and he saw all these widows that needed help. And so Harrison started his own ministry, NGO, non-government organization, a term I didn't know a few years ago. That's 501c3, you know, outside of America. And he started it. And by the grace of God, because I don't know how he found Orphan's Lifeline, we're now funding his Acts of Charity ministry. It's Harrison's. And that's what Orphan's Lifeline does. We have no property. We own nothing in foreign countries. We fund and manage Christians to care for their children in their country. And so we fund his ministry. He's an evangelist. That's what he does. He's a preacher there, but he's taking care of these widows. And so we're funding that program in the same sense as we fund our orphans. And so we're keeping the children home with their mother. And so typically what would happen is the mother, they were living in these mud huts that you can see there, and filthy huts. And the mother would go to town for the week and work and leave the kids. They wouldn't be fed properly. They wouldn't get education. They wouldn't, on and on. And so now we're enabling them to be home. We're keeping those kids from ending up in an orphan facility. And so we're building these simple homes for $3,500. Harrison worked this out. At $3,500, he can put up one of these simple homes that's dry and clean, and put furniture in it. And there's pictures on Facebook of kids on their couches and things. They're small homes, but it's a clean place for them. And this mother is saying thank you that there's finances for her daughter to be at this one home where she's getting educated. And so it's one of those widow with children situations. And so this is a picture of orphans feeding widows. So at the one home, they've got their orphan kids feeding widows. And so that's a joy to see, training them to understand the need to share and give. And so the Widows program, I know, will continue to grow because there's so much need and opportunity to help. And so Saving Lives, this is Zach Jones from, and I had that picture of him for my first 5 years probably, traveling around. And then a few years ago, I met him at Oklahoma Christian. And I said to him, you're like 1 in a million. This just does not happen. A lot of the kids adopted from Russia do not do well. The psychological damage from laying in a crib and getting absolutely no attention, soiling the crib and not getting changed, it's crazy. So there's a lot of psychological damage, which has made it very difficult. We can't adopt Russian children anymore, as you know. And so, but he grew up in a Christian home. He's a faithful Christian. And I asked him if I could have his picture. He said, if it helps more children, yes. And so I recently I can see all the donations to Orphan's Lifeline. And I can't tell you anything, but a friend of his donated because it said something that it was in honor of Zach. And so a friend of his donated to Orphan's Lifeline. So he continues to be a blessing. Elizabeth here, again, another picture that I've got 2 granddaughters. I'm about to have 2 new, Amanda will adopt the 2-year-old here pretty quick, and the other one. So I'm gonna have 4. I'd be proud to have him wearing that dress, And so it's a joy to me to see that. And this is Hope Family Home, Widnadine, from 2012, 13, and growing up. Those are the kids all growing up there. And let's see, So ways that we can help, of course. Orphan Sunday is how Orphan's Lifeline started getting funding. But you can see here that any amount helps, and those are true numbers. And so the reason that our sponsorship is $100 a month is because it's $40 a month to provide private education. And so when they started doing sponsorships, they're like, we're gonna use a real number. And so it's this much to fund a child. And so we have now sponsored, I think around 250, maybe to 300 children that people have decided I can sponsor a child, or a church has decided we can sponsor a child as a church. And so, some of us can't afford to sponsor a child. Some I know sponsor 6 children because they have a big business, somebody I know. And so, we're all at different levels of ability that God's given us with income and funding. And so, any amount helps. I tell people, if you only give $1, that's all you got, I'll find 1 million people that have $1, don't worry. And we'll have another 1 million. And so it's been a great blessing. I'm thrilled to get to come and share it. And we'll wrap up here and take a break and get ready for our worship time. Thank you for your time. Let's see, I'll hold on to that.
Yeah, you can just stick it up on the pulpit there.
Yeah, does somebody need it?
I don't think
Song
so.
leader. No, you got somebody